Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Minute. I'm your host, Adam Small, and with me today is Mr. Douglas Carr. Hey, Doug, how you doing today?
Fantastic.
Awesome. So good to have you on the show again. It's been a little while.
It has been. It's been too long.
It
Sorry.
has. It always is. You know, it's a funny thing. We kind of started doing interviews and stuff and Real Estate Marketing Minutes, and we haven't really gone back to some of our technical stuff. So I was thinking today that we would hit some technical stuff, especially centered around SEO and blogging. You know, we're about to launch our own content management system and websites and stuff. So
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Appreciate that. So it's really kind of timely, especially since you just did a post on your martech.zone marketing technology blog
Yep.
about what's it called in specific? It's actually
It's how to optimize your blog's next article for maximum impact.
right. So, you know, the interesting thing about that is that it's really not just a lot of what you've got on there isn't really just for blog posts. It could work for any page,
article.
any
Yeah.
article, any content on your website, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So let's kick off. What's the first thing you would do to optimize a blog post, an article, content on the web for SEO purposes?
So let's take one step back. And one of the things that
Let's define SEO, maybe.
yeah, we can talk about that, search engine optimization. So I think a lot of people underestimate that if you do some, and we're not talking about, massive amounts of work, but if you kind of get a checklist together of things to do before you publish, that your chances of your page getting found by search goes up dramatically.
Right.
I have one client that we've gotten their search engine optimization traffic. That's people searching on search engines for what they do, up about 73% without him writing differently.
Right.
Just the presentation of it, the speed of the site, mobile optimization, and then we'll go through this checklist. So some of the things I'm going to assume for your listeners are that they have a good site, it's fast, it works well on a mobile device.
Right.
And this is strictly about when I sit down to write a blog post or I write an article, what do I make sure that I get done when I do that?
Right. So this isn't really the quote unquote technical pieces of it that we're
Right.
talking about, right? Because you're right. There's so
It's
many
not about your
technical
domain.
things.
It's not about your content management
It's
system.
not about how fast it serves up. This isn't
Exactly.
about any of that stuff. This is about the actual content itself, right?
Yeah, so if I was going to write a blog post on another friend's site, or I was going to write an article, for a publication online,
Right.
these are the things that I would look out for.
Right. Okay, great. So then with that said, what's the first item that you look at? And I'm not calling it the number one item. I'm saying the
Yeah.
first item in your list, right? The difference there.
It is really the most important, and that's the title of your post, or title of your article. That's what's
Right.
going to grab people's eye. And so, some people are used to old journalism, type headlines that are just kind of factual,
Right.
that just say what it is, so,
Okay.
so this one I might have named it, before I publish what I optimize.
Right, right.
which-
Kind of dry, kind of boring. It's like, okay,
Exactly. It's
I don't
exactly
know what
what's
the
in
hell
there,
that's about, but it doesn't pique
yeah.
my interest.
Exactly.
And
so,
instead you named it.
yeah, how to optimize. I use the word your, so I'm talking to the person,
Right.
and then your blog's next article for maximum impact. So I'm trying to get them to understand that, oh, okay, so there's things that I can do, just to kind of lift the impact of it.
Right.
And so a title is, everything from a search engine standpoint, because when people do a keyword search, or a search for a real estate agent Indianapolis,
Mm-hmm.
What needs to come up? Typically a site with a page that's titled
That has something strong enough to make them want to click through, right? It's
Exactly.
it's very similar, in fact, to the subject line of an email.
Yeah.
A lot of times, especially with your marketing emails, if that subject line isn't good and optimized, then people are not going to open it.
That's a great example.
My own personal experience, we've got a couple of drip campaigns that we sent out, and in the first iteration of one of them, our second email, the open rate on it was only half of what the first email was, and actually it was half of the third, fourth, and fifth emails as well. And it was because the title on it was really, or not title, but the subject was not as intriguing as the rest. And so we went in and we changed it, and now it's on par with all the rest of them.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of things that people do called clickbait too.
Right.
Which there's good clickbait and bad clickbait is you're really lying to people about what's in the article.
Right. So you have to be real careful with
yeah.
that. You don't want to put a title out there that's not, I don't want to use the word factual because you use that when you were talking about the journalism thing, but an inaccurate title, right?
Inaccurate. Yeah.
You don't
If
want
you
to
don't
mislead people. You don't want it to be,
because that might get people to your page, but then they're going to leave and they're not going to trust you anymore.
right.
And
Right.
so, but some of the things that people do with clickbait that's good are like raising curiosity. So, like on here, I might have said, you might be surprised at the 10 things that you can do to optimize a blog post.
Right.
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 So now you've raised that intrigue level with people.
What's going to surprise me here, and what can I do,
I find it a little bit hokey, and I've not done that typically, so I never really wanted to make that transition.
So your dad joke persona hasn't spread over into your Martech persona.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. But so those are just, but I am always talking to the person, and that's
it's conversational, right?
Instead
it's not
of being kind of third person and everything else, I really try to be like I'm talking to you.
Right. Right. This is a conversation. This
Yeah.
isn't a scripted. It's nothing, dry. It's not a lecture. It's not a classroom, right?
Right.
So.
The second thing, which you may or may not have control over, is called a slug. And so for people listening, it's when you click on a link, there's the domain, and then there's a slash, and then there's that URL, the information,
right?
And that's called a slug. And so what I see a lot of people do is, you take a look at my title, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words in my title. So if I just left it as is, my post slug would be 10 words long. It would be this ridiculously long,
right?
Title, URL. And so I switched that up, and I just said how to. I used how to because those are important.
That's a key word, phrasing.
Yeah, it's a phrase that people are using, but how to optimize a blog post. That's
right.
it. And so kept it nice and simple, but it's easy for people to see on a search engine result, or if they put it in an email to someone,
right.
They could see that. And so if you can optimize the post slug, I always like a nice short post slug because it's easy,
concise, right?
Yeah. And you run into an email sometimes where if you have a text email and it wraps the URL, it breaks it,
yeah. Right.
And so you don't want that either. So
right.
I do pay attention to the post slug. The next is different from the page title, but it's the post title. And so this is going to confuse people. But,
let's try not to do that.
But just because you name your article something doesn't mean that the page is named that.
Right.
And so this is an SEO technique that a lot of people use, but for search engines, I might want that intriguing, kind of, information. But maybe within my website, I want something a little bit more basic for my title. The opportunity there is you can do both. And so you could have a page title that's one thing and your article title is something different. And that's typically within an SEO title, a meta field.
Right.
But it, like I said, it's not something I would say these aren't in order. That's kind of a secondary thing.
Right. And one of the benefits of that is that you can actually work with different phrasings of the same topic and kind of help you rank for both of the phrasings there. Right.
Yeah. Like a example would be if I'm writing about business to business in my page title, I might say B2B. In my article title, I might write out business to business. And now I've kind of covered both.
Right.
The next one is sharing. And there's another one that I just see people kind of miss the opportunity. And I've done it too, where people have written to me and they've said, hey, how do I share this?
Right.
And so do you have buttons on your site? Do you have a method for people to share it? So make sure that you have some kind of shareable buttons there. So.
Right. And that's your social sharings to various social services out there, right? Social media networks, that sort of thing, right?
Featured image. people don't know what this is, but it's really important.
Right. I was actually going to actually have you define what that is first and then talk about where it can be used and
Yeah.
why it's so important.
So here's an example. So let's say you read a great article and you want to share it on Facebook. And so you put the URL on Facebook and up comes a blank picture and just a title.
Right.
Right.
Or the other thing that happens sometimes is that it's the site's logo
Yeah.
or some other random image from the page.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, what content management systems allow you to do is set an image that's associated with your article.
Right.
And so I always try to use something that kind of plants the seed in someone's head that this is what they're about to read, you know,
something relevant to
Yeah.
what they're going to read.
yeah.
Right.
So I did a rant post the other day, and I had a lady with smoke blowing out of her ears,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and so I try to get something compelling, you know.
Well, it's something that, like you said, compelling, that piques the interest. They go, oh, well, this might, because it catches the eye, you know. And the thing with social, in particular, social media, is they're scrolling through, flipping through, and if it's just text or if it's just some weird logo or whatever, they're just gonna keep right on going. But
Right.
why does that woman have steam coming out of her ears?
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it. It's a funny picture.
That might be interesting.
Yeah,
Let me
it's
have
a
a
funny
look at
picture.
that.
I'm going to click through on it. And
Exactly.
So a featured image is really, really important. And again, the imagery, we'll talk about it in a second here, is just critical to capture people's eyes. The next one is something that a lot of people don't think about, but the hierarchy of your writing. And so what I mean by that is people don't read a page from top to bottom. They read the title,
Right.
and then they scan.
Right.
And they might even scan and scroll.
Right.
And so the thing is if all you have is a one massive text block,
If you've got a novel sitting there without any
Yeah.
breaks in headings or visuals and pictures, which you said we'll talk about in a moment, but basically that gives them an opportunity. If you put headings in there or even lists, it gives them an opportunity to go, oh, well, this is a section that I'm going to be interested in, so I'm going
That's
to stop
exactly
here
it.
and I'm going to read this, right?
So subheadings, bulleted lists, numbered lists, block quotes, you know, so having a quote from someone or
Right.
something, images within, you know, so if you're telling a story or something, you know, what additional images can you put in there? Is there a chart or diagram that you can put in or whatever? All of those things are going to be capturing that person's eye. Now, the interesting thing that happens is people will read the post title, they'll start scrolling down the page, they'll see a headline and see a picture, and then they'll read that section,
Right.
you
right,
know,
right.
and so they might not even read the rest of the article.
They may not.
Yeah.
It may pique them. They may go, okay, I need to read the rest of this, and they may go up and start all over, or they may just read that one little bit and walk away with whatever that bit of information was.
Now, without that, the problem is that people will go to the page, just see that it's a big text block, and they'll go back to the search engine.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't write a great article.
It just means that you didn't get them to see what they were looking
That's
for.
exactly it.
They weren't able to
Yeah.
find what they were looking for quickly, because our attention span, it's, I hate the phrase that our attention spans have shortened, because that's not really what
Right.
it is. But we're looking for that. We're
We're
looking for
digging.
one thing,
Yeah.
and if you don't make it easy for me to find it, I'm going to go somewhere else where it is easy to find
Yeah.
it.
In fact, you're saying it the right way. If you write hierarchically, I don't know if that's a word, but if you write,
It is now.
It is now. If you write that way,
Trademark.
you will get people to stay longer.
Right.
You
They'll-
will capture their attention.
and they'll most likely
Yeah.
come back because they're looking for that topic for a reason,
Yeah.
and they'll most likely come back because in their head is, oh, that was easy to read. I'm going
Like
to come
you-
back and I'm going to look at other things that this
Yeah.
person has written.
You and I have, you know, we probably do it 100 times a day. We go search for something online, and we keep searching for it until we find it.
Right.
So there wasn't a problem with our attention span.
No.
There was
no.
a problem with the pages that we kept bringing up. that
It wasn't what we wanted.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Visuals, I talked about those a little bit, but the thing is you don't have to come up with these yourself either.
right.
Now, I'm not telling people to go out and take copyrighted images and throw copyrighted images into your stuff. You can get in a lot of trouble for that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't steal other people's images.
What I'm talking about is, here's a perfect example. A couple times I've written articles about a certain website.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten my camera out and taken a picture of the website on my monitor,
Okay.
like just to give a cool picture, you
Right,
know?
right.
So, and so it's my picture.
Right.
I can share it,
Right.
and I didn't have any copyrighted material in that or anything like that. And so if you're talking about, maybe it's house renovation, go take a picture of a house that,
That's being redone, right?
yeah,
Renovated, right?
exactly. And it's your picture,
Right.
take it on public property and everything else,
Right. Right.
but the other one that's kind of funny that I don't see a lot of people do, but I do it a lot, is I steal some traffic sometimes. I find a great video on YouTube and
Mm-hmm.
I share it. And so let's say it's a video about staging your home,
Right.
right?
Right.
You might sit there and go, well, I got to go spend a couple $1,000s to get a videographer and we'll do a video about staging.
Right.
Okay, there's probably 1,000 videos on YouTube about staging your home.
Mm-hmm.
If you can embed that video, it's okay.
Right, because that sharing, that posting to YouTube, that whole process is designed for that specifically.
Exactly.
Right.
So put that video and say, hey, this video from Karen in Phoenix, Arizona
Mm-hmm.
does a perfect job. Link to her site, tell
Right.
people who she is and everything else, but watch this 10-minute video on staging your home.
Right.
And
You could even write a summary of the video,
boom.
and you'll get traffic even though the video is not yours,
Absolutely.
Now, the thing you don't want to do is download that video, edit it, and
Yeah.
then re-upload it. That's not cool. Let's not do that.
Yeah, don't
right?
do that.
But commentary is perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the links, I just talked about that, if you share something of somebody's, give them credit back with the link.
Right, right.
There used to be this old thing with SEO that people used to just say, don't outbound link, don't outbound, it would be
Because
like,
it was taking juice away from your
yeah,
site, right?
Yeah. And here's the problem is you're thinking like a scientist and not thinking like a user. If I go to your website and you have just what you said, right? An overview of a video, let's say,
Right.
and you wrote a paragraph about it, but I want more information.
Right.
If you have a link there that says, hey, here's a great article on, LinkedIn about this,
Mm-hmm.
you're feeding your audience and you're providing value to your audience.
And by doing that, guess what? They are becoming your audience.
Exactly.
They're coming
And
back.
Exactly. And so they're going to appreciate the fact that you're providing value there. So nonsense to the SEO consultants that say don't outbound and
Right,
all that
right,
stuff.
right.
It's and for people that, might say, well, Doug, what do you do? Look, I take care of a number of client sites and I have some big sites of my own. I outbound the crap out of all of them.
And it doesn't hurt yours at
Nope.
all. I think it actually helps because what ends up happening, if you've got your stuff set up right, you'll actually see where links are coming into your site. Yeah. And a lot of times when people see that link coming in, they go back and they'll either share your article or they'll link back to you because you wrote a great article about them.
Yep.
Exactly.
Categories are important. Most content management systems have two things. They have one, categories, which is just like you would think.
Right. It's just a way of categorizing your content.
Yeah. So maybe it's one category is mortgages. The next one
Buyer,
is
sellers, home loans.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The thing is to pre-think those ahead of time and really think about your audience and what they're interested in.
So categories is where you want to be really structured.
Yes.
Right. That's where you want to structure your website content in such a way that it organizes it so that it's easy to find relevant content. Right.
Just like I said, if I wanted to read about mortgages, I would click on the mortgage category,
right,
and I could read 20 articles on mortgages.
Right.
Make sure. Here's what I see all the time. I see the category called uncategorized.
Right. Everything should go into uncategorized, right?
And so, and it's because people set up with the default, never added a category, never changed it, and
right,
all of their stuff is in. Now, there's two reasons why that's bad. One is from an SEO standpoint, you just told Google that uncategorized is a keyword that you're
searching for. You're looking to rank on uncategorized.
Yeah. And so, and the second is you're not helping your people by, your readers by organizing your content. So,
right.
Think about 12 different categories and stay disciplined. And one of the things that I use my categories to is I kind of look, what was my last post in that category?
Right.
Ooh, I haven't written about that in 3 months.
Right.
Let
So
me
in this
write an
case, it
article.
might be I haven't written a buyer's article in 3 months. It's time for me to write a buyer's article.
Yeah.
It's time for me to write a seller's article or whatever it may be. Right.
Yep. So categories are really important from that standpoint. The next one is tags. Tagging, a lot of people don't do this, but here's where it makes a big difference is when you're writing your article, if there's things that people are, maybe you were talking about buyer, so maybe it's buyer and it's bank, financing, what other
Well, it could be
terms?
any sort of thing. You could actually do by neighborhood too, right?
Neighborhoods,
So it could
yeah.
be Irvington
That,
buyers, Greenwood buyers,
great example.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing as well,
Yeah,
right?
and so what tags do is kind of two things. I don't see a lot of interaction with users actually clicking on tags on my
Right.
site, but where it really helps that people don't understand is internal searches.
Right.
And so if just like you said, I wanted to buy a house in Irvington, I would search your real estate site for Irvington homes for sale.
Right.
Well, if you had all these homes for sale and you didn't tag them with Irvington, they might not pop up.
Right.
And
Right.
so internal search tagging is really, really important. And I think over time your site really becomes a lot richer and a lot easier to use, when you tag well.
Well, and the other part of tagging is that it's a more free form of a more free form style of categorization.
Yeah.
So like with our blog posts, we do an interview with an accountant, right? Now, do I really want to create an accountant's category? No, but I might tag them with accountant so that I can
Perfect.
still see the fact that I interviewed an
Yeah.
accountant, right? And somebody could come and say, hey, search, real estate accountant maybe.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it might pop up.
It will if you tagged
so
it.
If I did it
Yeah,
right, it will,
yeah.
right?
Now we're not saying that it won't if you don't tag it,
Right.
but it definitely will if you do.
You're just ensuring that it will.
So it's a really good practice.
Exactly.
The next one is meta descriptions. A lot of people don't understand this, but when you do a search on a search engine, you're gonna come up and it's gonna have the title of the page. It's going to have the URL of the page, and then there's going to be this little, couple lines of text. I think
The excerpt.
I think it's about 100 characters or something like
along
that.
those lines,
Maybe it's
yeah.
more now. Maybe it's 160 or something. But anyways, when you think about you looking at that search engine result page, you typically clicked on the one where the title and the description matched exactly what you were looking for.
Right.
What I see a lot of people do is they don't change their meta description, and it's typically a field within the site.
Right.
Sometimes, like you said, it's called excerpt, or sometimes it's a totally separate field called meta description.
Right.
And the opportunity there is to sell it, right?
Right.
So
because what happens if you don't is a lot of the content management systems will just take the first couple of lines of,
Exactly.
of your article, which that could be just you gearing up and absolutely nothing relevant to what it's really about.
nothing interesting. Yeah.
Right. So you take and you sell it, right?
Yeah. So let's say if Irvington, we got on that, but
Right.
let's say, let's say I wrote about a house in Irvington,
Right.
my house, the listing and all the information might be there on what the neighborhood is and how good it is and everything else. But in that meta description, I could sell it in 2 sentences. I could say newly renovated, undervalued home, just went on the market.
Right. Right.
And so I can really pronounce,
You can talk about the good parts about it without having to sort through all the filter.
exactly.
Right? So,
And so now remember, people aren't seeing your site. They're just seeing the title, URL, and meta description on the search engine page.
so to take it back to an email analogy, or actually kind of an entrepreneur analogy would be better. It's that elevator pitch. That's
Yeah.
60 seconds. You've got it. You're in front of them, and now you need to convince them to click that link through, right? So that's essentially what this is that elevator pitch. You condense it, you make it interesting, and the whole point of it is just enough to get them to go, okay, show me more.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And please, again, don't clickbait them. Don't lie.
Right.
Tell them what they're going to get.
Right. Right.
So, and then the last one, and everybody might laugh at this for people that know me.
I laughed.
Yeah, is grammar and spelling.
I laughed not because his grammar, but because his spelling is
Horrendous.
atrocious.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it's
So,
because I'm a I'm a stream of consciousness writer.
Right.
So I see my spelling errors an hour later.
Right. But you don't see them when you're writing them.
I don't see them when I'm writing
So
them.
it's like me with text messages. I sent one to my son the other day, and I was telling him that the library cops were going to come get him, and it was actually the library chips were going to come get him. I said, that's what the California Highway Patrol's called.
Nice recovery, Dad.
Yeah.
But grammar and spelling is absolutely one of those things that I'm not turned off by them. I'm not.
Right.
Because I make mistakes all the time. But there's a certain percentage of the audience that you
Tune
lose
out immediately.
credibility instantaneously.
Yeah.
They think you're dumb, or they think, this. And so my thing is so I use a tool called Grammarly.
Right.
And it's
nice little plug-in built right in.
Nice
right?
little plug-in, and it basically tells me you're a dummy. You wrote TOO instead of two.
So it's got the
TO.
grammar as well as the spelling.
Yeah. It even has tone and all kinds of tips.
Right. I've seen some of their recent video commercials on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
it's really come a long way.
And I forget what it is, $60 a year or something like that.
I don't know.
But
it's well worth it.
It's worth not being embarrassed, right? And that's the thing is, there's nothing worse, and it always happens to me that I'll be in my car driving somewhere, and someone will text me or whatever and say, you got a really embarrassing spelling error in your second paragraph.
It's usually me.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on,
I wait till you get in the car to do it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So that's I'll kind of walk you guys through again. So title, featured image, hierarchy, the post slug, visuals, links, categories, tags, meta descriptions, grammar, and spelling, and then. Now you got it ready, and I talked about sharing before. Now it's when I publish the post.
Right. What do you do?
I got to go promote it.
Yeah.
So I need to put it on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
And have sharing buttons on it for other people to share it and everything else. And I'm surprised at the amount of people that don't share what they write.
With it. Exactly.
Nobody's going to magically come and discover your stuff for you. You got to
Well,
work
that's
at
what
it.
Google's for.
Yeah.
But you can actually drive a lot more traffic if you share it, and then other people will share it and that sort of thing. And another thing that you do actually is you send an email with the article in it as well,
I do too.
right?
Yeah, I do that. And then on what's known as evergreen content. Evergreen content is kind of timeless content. So this post, for example, is one it's evergreen, right?
Right.
I can continue to update it and keep it up to date over the years. Well, this is one that I publish and I promote probably on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Through social media. People don't remember that I promoted it 3 months ago.
So it's one you push out on a regular basis, like you said, quarterly. So it's because it is in fact evergreen, you can constantly push this out.
Yeah.
So, and from a real estate perspective, that's actually a huge opportunity to make sure that your content stays relevant and up to date in people's eyes. Is you can, buyers and seller stuff is constantly being searched for and looked for. So if you're putting something out there pretty regularly about that, then your likelihood of driving more traffic is going to increase.
When the other great thing is you don't have to come up with a new blog post.
Just update it.
Just update your current one. So take 5 minutes, go put a new video in it, go find a new graphic to put in it, optimize it a little bit, tweak it for the time or day or whatever, and get it out there.
Well, and the nice thing about that tweaking like that too is something that Doug showed, we demonstrated to me the other day, a couple of weeks ago, actually, I should say. We took an article from our blog post that was 8 or 9 years old.
Yep.
And it was ranking on the second page of Google.
Right.
And Doug and I walked through it, and with some of these recommendations that he did, now we're in the number 4 position for that particular term.
And the reason why for everybody listening is that it just got stale. It was still a good article, but the dates on it were old. And so what was happening was if people saw that this was published 8 years ago, they weren't going to click on it.
Right, because it's irrelevant at this point from their perspective.
They think
it's from their perspective, it's irrelevant,
and so
but it really wasn't.
By taking it, we added some images to it. We updated the featured image, I think, on it, made it a little bit more compelling. What we did was basically present a new article. Now, the URL never changed.
Right.
So all of that search engine authority that you had before stayed. And then when people shared it and people clicked on it and everything else, then it just popped right up because it was
Right.
already great.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even most of the content didn't change. It was just
Right.
it was small changes and some additions,
Exactly.
but most of it didn't change. And from my perspective, going from the second page to the first page, that's an enormous jump.
Huge.
And actually I think it's number 4 position on the first page. So wow.
And people and that's the thing that I tell people, like, you don't work smarter, not harder.
Right.
You could sit there and try to think of blog posts to write every single day. But when you have one sitting out there that's on page 4 and you just, we use a tool, SEMrush, SEMrush, to test that, all we had to do was go, wow, that's ranking on page 4 and it's 8 years old.
Right.
Is there something we could do to fix that?
Just a little tweak
Boom,
here and
done.
It's huge, right?
And so if you have if you have 200 articles out on your site, chances are
you've got some that are ranking well enough, but they're getting a little stale. And if you just tweak them, you're going to jump, right?
Exactly.
So, all right, great. So before we close up, Doug, any other thoughts? Any final thoughts?
That's it. I mean, like I said, nowadays SEO used to be about quantity and speed. It's not anymore. And I mean speed of publishing, how often you published and frequency of publishing.
Right.
Nowadays, it's really write a great article. So I used to write a blog post, or I actually used to write 2 a day.
Right.
And for a spell that worked, but it doesn't work anymore. And so now it's really, if I can spend 3 days working on a really great article that's in depth, my return on investment is huge for that. And so that's the thing that we want to get across is take the time and go through these steps and optimize your article. And, the difference between, let's say I took 2 hours to write an article and I took these 15 minutes, right? Maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all.
The fact that I can get a 73% increase in traffic is, worth that 20 minutes.
Absolutely. So cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Doug. It's been great. That was a great article on your post, martech.zone, on your blog. And if you guys like what you're listening to, don't forget to like and or subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much. Have a great day.